Hi everybody, welcome to Live Blogger. I have combined all the videos in our 3D rotating cube design series into the single long video so that it's easy for you to follow. Now in this video, we are basically going to create this design right here. So here we can see on the right side, we have this cube that rotates based on the mouse pointer position. So we will design this in this video, and I'll also show you how to make this responsive. And in the end, I'll also show you how to add this design to your Blogger homepage. And I will also leave the link of the source code in the description of this video. So let's get started. In this video, we will start designing this page right here. So here we can see we have this cube over here on the right, and we can move the mouse around to rotate this cube right here. So on each side of this cube, we have some text written. So you can go ahead and add any information you want over here in this cube. So in this video, we will start designing this page right here using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So let's get started. Right here, I have created this folder called 3D Cube, and I just opened it with VS Code. Now let's go ahead and create the necessary files. So let's click on New File, and we need to create an HTML file. I'll just name it index.html. And we also need to have a CSS file. I'll just name it style.css. And we also need to have a JavaScript file. Let's name it main.js. Right, let's start with the index.html file. Now in VS Code, you can just press exclamation and press tab, and you'll have this basic HTML5 code. And let's link our CSS file over here. So I'll just type link and press tab. And in the href, I'll just type style.css. And let's link the JavaScript file over here. So I'll just type script:/src and press tab. And here I'll just type main.js. Right now, the first thing we will do is we'll create a header tag. And in that, we'll create this left division and this right division over here. So for the left division, let's create a division with the class of left. And in that, we will have this heading. So for that, we'll create an h1. And I'll just type welcome. And then we'll create a paragraph, and let's give it a class of subheading. And here I'll just type to the world of amazing designs. So I'll just copy this and paste it over here. And then for the right side, we'll create a division, and let's give it a class of cube container. And in that, we need to have a division with the class of cube. And in the cube, we need to have all these different cube faces. So we need to have a division for the front face, we need to have a division for the back face, and all these different faces. So let's go back and let's create a division with the class of cube face. And for the front, we will have a text of web design. Now we'll also give it a class of front because this is for the front face. Now there are 6 faces to our cube. So let's duplicate this and let's create 5 more of these divisions. Right, the next one is for back. And then we have left. And then we have right. And then we have top. And then lastly, we have bottom. Let's also change the text of all of these. So for the second one, let's type app development. And for the third one, let's type SEO. And then for the fourth one, let's type WordPress. And here let's type Blogger. And then lastly, let's add one more thing. Let's type WooCommerce. Right, now let's open this in our browser and let's see how it looks right now. So I have this extension called Live Server installed in VS Code. So once you install this extension, you can just right click over here in the HTML and click on Open with Live Server. And here we can see that our design is displayed in the browser. Right now we don't have any styles, so let's go ahead and style it using CSS. Let's go back to our source code. And here we have already linked our CSS file. So let's go to style.css file and let's start by styling the body. And we'll set the margin to 0. And we'll set the padding to 0 as well. And let's set the height of the body to 100 viewport height, which is 100% of the browser window. And let's set the font family to Poppins and sans serif. And let's add a background color of black. So this is how it looks right now. Right now, let's style the h1, which is this heading right here. So it is inside the header tag. So let's type header h1. And we'll set the margin of the h1 to 0. And let's set the font size to 100 pixels. And let's also change the color of the text. So I'll just select the header And here I'll just tap color and let's set it to white, or let's try gray. Now we need to bring this content to the center, so let's go ahead and let's type display of flex, and let's set the align items to the center, and we also need to set the height to 100 viewport height. And now we can see that the content is in the center. Now we'll also set a max width for the whole content, so let's go ahead and let's add a container division. So let's create a division with the class of container, and I'll just cut this ending tag from here and place it all the way after the header. And let's go ahead and let's style the container. And for the container, let's go ahead and set a max width of 1000 pixels, and let's set the margin to 0 auto so that it is in the center. And now we can see that our content is in the center. So if I just add a background color over here, we can see this is our max width of 1000 pixels and it is in the center. Right now let's style the subheading. So I'll just type header, subheading, and for the subheading I'll just set the font size to 24 pixels, and we'll set the margin to 0 for this as well. So here we have the heading and the subheading. Now let's go ahead and style the cube faces. So let's go back, and here we can see we have this division with the class of cube face. So let's go back and let's type cube container, which is the container division. So here we have cube container, and in that we have cube face, and let's set the width and the height to 300 pixels. And now if you go back, this is how it looks. Let's also style the text. So I'll just type font size and let's set it to 30 pixels, and for testing I'll just add a background color, and let's set the color of the text to black, and let's set the font weight to bold. And we need to bring this text to the center of this division. So let's type display of flex and align items to the center and justify content to the center. Right now let's go ahead and add different background colors to all of these faces. So let's go back and let's type cube container, and in that we have these divisions with classes of front, back, left, right, top and bottom. So let's type front, and for the front let's add a background color of E63946. And now let's go back, and right now we cannot see it, so let's zoom out a little bit. And now we can see for this front face we have a background color of red. Let's go ahead and add different background colors to all these faces. So I'll just copy this and paste it down here, and here I'll just type back, and for the back we need to have a different color. So let's type 06D6A0. Right now let's go back and paste it over here, and let's type left, and for this one let's go ahead and type 023047. And since this is a dark color, let's also change the color of the text to white. Right, let's go back and paste it down here, and here let's type right, and for the right side we need to have 3D348B, and for this also let's set a white text color. And then we have top, so let's go ahead and paste it over here, and here let's type top, and for the top let's give it a color of A8DADC, and let's paste it over here, and let's type bottom, and for the bottom let's give it a color of FFD166. Right now let's go ahead and add the 3D effect. So let's go back, and for the cube container let's add some styles. So we haven't referenced that over here, so here I'll just type cube container, and we need to set the perspective to 1000 pixels. You can experiment with this value. And now we need to select the cube, so it is inside the cube container. So let's type cube container, cube, and for this also we'll set the width and the height to 300 pixels. And here we need to type transform style, and we need to set it to preserve 3D. Let me just reset the zooming. Right now if you go ahead and add some transform to these divisions, it will have the 3D effect. So let's go back. Now here for the front face, I'll just type transform, translate Z, and I'll just set it to 150 pixels. So now this is the front face. Now let's go ahead and style the left. So for the left, let's type transform, and here we need to add a rotation as well. So let's type rotate Y, and for the angle, let's set it to negative 90 degrees, and translate Z, and let's set it to 150 pixels. And now if we scroll down here, we can see we have this left division over here, and this is how it looks right now. So let's go ahead and set the position of all the cube face to absolute. So let's go back, and for the cube face, let's go ahead and type position, and let's set it to absolute. Now if you go back to our design, here we can see this is how it looks right now. Let's right click over here and click on inspect, and here if we inspect this, here we can see this is the front division, and if you take a look at the left division, this is how it looks. So we can see that it looks like a cube. We cannot see it from the front right now. So let's add the styling for the other cubes as well. So let's go back, and for the back we need to rotate it 180 degrees. So let's tap transform, rotate Y, and let's set it to 180 degrees, and let's type translate Z, and for this also let's type 150 pixels. Now if you take a look at this, we can see that 150 pixels is being added for all these translate Z, and for the width and height we have 300 pixels. So we have the same values over here as well. So what we can do is we can create a variable over here, and we can just reuse the variable. So let's type :root, and here I'll just create a variable called cube width, and let's set it to 300 pixels, and let's type translate Z, and I'll just set it to 150 pixels. So this translate Z should always be half than the cube width. So now we can go ahead and change these values, and it will be changed in all these places. So I'll just replace all of these with the variables. So I'll just delete all of these 300 pixels from here. I'll just press Command D to select all of these, and let's type var -- cube width, and let's select all these 150 pixels values from here, and let's type var translate Z. Now let's style the right division. So here let's type transform, and let's type rotate Y, and let's set it to 90 degrees, and let's type translate Z, and let's type var translate Z, and then we have top and bottom. So I'll just copy this line of code, and let's paste it over here, and here instead of rotate Y we need to type rotate X, because these are horizontal. And then lastly we have bottom, so I'll just paste it over here and change this to rotate X, and this to negative 90 degrees. Right now let's go back to our design, and if you right click over here and go to inspect, and if you take a look at all these divisions, here we can see this is the front face, then we have the back, and then we have the left, we have the right, we have the top, and we have the bottom. So all the faces of the cube are aligned perfectly. Right, here's the source code, and the first thing we will do is I'll just move this cube to the right side. So here for the header, which is the container, so in the header we have the left division and the cube container division. So here for the header, I'll just type justify content, and let's set it to space between. And now if you go back here, we can see that the cube is on the extreme right side, and the text content is on the extreme left side. Right now let's add the code to rotate this cube when we move the mouse pointer. Here we have already created this main.js file, and we have linked it over here in the HTML file. So what we need to do is we need to change the rotation of this cube division based on the mouse pointer position. So for that we need to reference this cube division. So let's go to main.js file, and let's type const cube equals document.querySelector.cube, and now we need to add an event listener to the window. So let's type window.add event listener, and we need to listen to the mouse move event, and let's create a function to execute the code. So let's create a function called handle mouse move. Right, let's create the function over here. So I'll just type const handle mouse move. Now this function gives us some data, and we can call the data over here. So I'll just call it event. You can name this anything you want. Right, now let's create some variables to store the data that we get from this event. So I'll just create some variables over here. I'll just create a variable called mouse x, and by default we'll set it to 0. And let's create a variable called mouse y, and let's set it to 0 by default as well. Now we're going to get a lot of data from this event. So I'll just console.log some data that we need. So I'll just type console.log and we'll get this data for the mouse X. And for that we need to type event.clientX. So this will give us the mouse X position. And let's type console.log and I'll just type mouse Y. And here let's type event.clientY. Now let's go back to our design and let's see whether we have the data. So let's right click over here and go to inspect and let's open the console. And now we can see we have all this data over here. So if I move the mouse pointer, the position is being displayed over here. I'll just dock this console to the browser. Right now we can see that the mouse pointer position is being displayed over here. So if you go to the top left, we have 0, 0. And if you go to the right, we have the X position changing. And if we go to the bottom, we have the Y position changing. So we will use this data and we will change the rotation of this cube. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go back to our code. Now let's go ahead and delete these two lines of code and we'll just store the event.clientX and event.clientY into these two variables. So let's type mouse X equals event.clientX and mouse Y equals event.clientY. Right now we need to set the rotation. So let's type rotate X and we'll just set it to negative mouse Y divided by window.inner height. So this will give us the height of this window from here till here. And then we need to type minus 0.5 and we need to multiply this by a value. So this will be the amount of rotation. So I'll just type 270. You can change this value and try different rotation speeds. And now let's type rotate Y. This should be rotate, so I'll just add an E over here. So rotate Y equals, and this will be mouse X divided by window.inner width minus 0.5 multiplied by this value right here. So I'll just create it as a constant over here. So I'll just type const rotation value and let's set it to 270. And I'll just add this constant over here instead of 270. So I'll just type rotation value. Here also I'll just type rotation value. Now the last thing we need to do is set this rotation to this cube right here. So let's type cube.style.transform equals, and let's use backticks, and here let's type rotate X, and now we need to add the variable. So let's type $, curly braces, and here let's type rotate X, and we also need to add degrees over here. So let's type DEG, and then we need to type rotate Y, and in parentheses you need to add the value. So we have the variable over here called rotate Y. So let's type $, curly braces, rotate Y, and we need to add degrees over here. Right now this should make our cube rotate based on the mouse position. So let's go back to our design. And now we can see that when we move this mouse pointer, the cube is being rotated. And we can go ahead and increase or decrease the rotation speed. So if you go back to our code, and here if we change this to, let's try 180, now we can see that the rotation speed is too less. And if you go back and change this to, let's try 360, now we can see that the rotation speed is too much. So you can go ahead and experiment with different values over here. I just find 270 to be a good value for the rotation speed. So that's basically how you can create this rotating cube using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. This is how our Blogger website looks right now. So I'm using a theme called Contempo Lite, which comes by default with Blogger. And here for this blog post, I have just added some custom code to make this design look like this. I have also created a video on how to create this design for your blog post. You can watch that if you want to make a design like this. But for now, we'll just add this design into our Blogger homepage. So we'll just add it over here, just below the header. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to figure out where we need to add our design. So we need to figure out the structure of our Blogger homepage. So let's right click over here and click on inspect. And here we can see this is how the website is structured. And if you scroll down, here we have this header, and below the header we have this blog post. So we need to add our design below this header tag. So we need to look for the header ending tag in our theme code. So let's go to our Blogger dashboard and let's go to theme and let's click on this arrow and click on edit HTML. And here I'll just search for the ending tag of the header. So I'll just press Command F, or if you're using Windows, you can just press Control F and let's type >/header. So here we can see this is the ending of the header. Now we need to display this design only on the home page. So we need to add an if condition in our theme code. And here we can see we have already added some if condition for this design right here. So I'll just copy and paste this same code. You can just type what you see over here. And here I'll just end the if tag. So I'll just type >b:\if. Now in here we can add the code of our design. So let's go to our source code. And I will leave the link of the source code in the description. So this is the source code. So I'll just copy all of this from here till here. And this is the HTML. So you can go ahead and change these data over here. You can change the H1. You can change the text of the paragraph and all these cube face text over here. So let's copy this from here and I'll just paste it over here. Right now let's add our CSS. So let's go back to our source code and let's go to the style.css file and let's copy all the CSS from here. Now we don't want to copy the styles of this body element over here because it will affect all the other elements in our theme. So I'll just copy the whole CSS from here and I'll just delete this body CSS in our theme code. So let's go back to our theme code and let's scroll up and let's go to the CSS of the theme code. So here we can see this is the CSS. So I'll just make some space over here and I'll just create a comment. I'll just tap 3D rotating cube and let's paste the CSS over here. And I'll just delete the CSS of the body. Right now we have to add the JavaScript, but before that we need to make sure that we don't have any selectors clashing with the theme. So in our theme we already have an element with this tag of header, and I think we may also have an element with the class of container. So what we will do is we will add a unique selector. So let's scroll down to our HTML. I'll just search for the ending tag of header. And here for the container, I'll just change this class to main container. So now this is a custom class. Right now let's scroll back to the CSS and let's make the changes over here. So here instead of container, we need to change all of these to main container. So the header is also inside the container. So here we can see the header is inside the container. So we have changed the name of the container division to main container. So let's tap main container. And I'll just change all this container class to main container. So just copy this from here and paste it over here. And let's do the same for this header h1. And then we have the header subheading. So we'll do the same over here as well. And then we have the cube container. So it is also inside the main container. So I'll just type main container over here. And here also let's type main container, and I'll do the same for all these selectors so that we have a unique selector. Right now let's add the JavaScript. So let's go back to our end of header tag, and here I'll just create a script tag. And here in this script tag we will add the JavaScript. So let's go back to our source code. And let's go to the main.js file and let's copy everything from here. And let's go back and paste it over here inside the script tag. And now let's click on save. Right now let's go back to our website and let's refresh this page. And here we can see we have this cube and we can rotate the cube by moving the mouse pointer. And the text is not being displayed because it is in white color. Now in our original design we also have a background color of black. So let's do that. Let's go back to our code, and what we will do is here we will add an outer division. In our original design we had added the black background color to the body, but we have deleted the body styles from the theme code, so we need to add an outer division. So let's create a division and I'll just give it a class of cube outer, and we need to close the division over here. Right now we need to add some styles to this cube outer. So let's go to the CSS, and here I'll just type cube outer, and we'll just set the background color to black, and let's save it. And let's go back to our website and let's refresh this page. And now we can see we have this black background color, and it looks alright. Now if you're using the default version of the theme and if you don't have this design right here in your Blogger website, then you may have some problems in the styling. You may not be having the full width over here for this design. So let me quickly show you how to fix that. Let's go back to our code. Let's scroll down and find the start of the body tag. Here we can see this is where the body starts, and in that we have different B class elements over here. So these are basically tags that are used to add classes to the parent element. So right now body is the parent element. So if we have this condition fulfilled, then this class with the name of search view will be added to this body. So in the same way we have added our custom B class element over here. So here we can see if the blog URL is the homepage URL, which means if we are on the home page, then we need to add the homepage class to the body. So if you go back to our website and if I right click over here and go to inspect, here we can see for the body we also have a class called homepage. Now we won't be having this class in any other pages. It will be just available for the home page. So let's go back to our code. So this B class element will add the homepage class to the body. And if you scroll up and go to the CSS, here we can see we are adding this line of CSS to the homepage centered. So whenever we are on the home page, we will add this line of CSS to the centered division. So if you go back to our website structure, here we can see we have this division with the class of centered, and by default it had a max width in the theme. So here we can see it had a max width of 922 pixels. What we are doing over here is that we are just setting the max width to unset so that the max width limit is removed. So now we can see we have this full width for this design. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to make this responsive. So right now if I decrease the width of the browser window, this is how it looks. It doesn't look good. So we need to make it responsive. So the first thing we will do is we will always set this cube to a certain amount from the right side. So right now if I just decrease the width of the browser window, we can see that the cube moves to the right. So what we will do is we'll just fix the cube to a certain position. So let's go back to our CSS and let's go to the cube container. So here we have the cube container. So I'll just set the position to absolute, and from the right we will have a distance of 80 pixels, and let's save it. Now let's go back to our design and let's refresh this page. And now we can see this is how it looks. So if I decrease the width of the browser window, the cube will still remain in the same position. And I'll also set a width of 90% for the container so that we have some padding. So let's go back to our CSS and let's go to the main container, and here for the main container I'll just set a width of 90% and let's save it. And let's go back to our website and let's refresh this page. And now if we decrease the width of the browser window, now we have a width of 90%. Now we want this box to move behind this text. So let's go back and for the cube container, we will add a z index and I'll just set it to -1. And now let's go ahead and save this. And now let's go back to our website and refresh this page. And now the cube is not being displayed because it is behind all the other elements in our theme. Now to fix that, you have to go back to your CSS and you have to add a line of code to the main container division, which is cube outer. So you need to type isolation, isolate. And now let's go ahead and save this. And now if we go back to our website and refresh this page, now we can see that our cube is being displayed and it is behind the text. Right now let's add a media query to make it work for smaller screens. So what we will do is we'll just decrease the opacity of this cube, and we'll also decrease the font size of this heading. So let's go back to our CSS and let's scroll down, and here I'll just create a media query. I'll just type at media and let's set the max width to 720 pixels. So whenever the screen size is less than 720 pixels, all the CSS inside this block will be added to our design. So let's type cube container and I'll just set the opacity to 0.4, and let's type main container header h1, and let's set the font size to 60 pixels, and let's save it. Right now, let's go back to our design and let's refresh this page, and let's decrease the width of the browser window. And now we can see that the changes have been applied. But for the mobile devices, we don't want to have this rotation based on the mouse pointer. We want it to rotate by default. So we will add an animation of rotation for the mobile devices. And for larger screens, we will have this rotation based on the mouse pointer. So let's do that. Let's go back to our code. And let's scroll down and let's create an animation. So let's type add keyframes. And let's name the animation rotate anim. And here we'll just type 2. And it will start from the default state to this state right here. So here I'll just type transform rotate x, and here let's type negative 360 degrees, and rotate y, and here I'll just type negative 360 degrees. Right now let's add this animation to the cube. So I'll just type cube container, and if you go back to our HTML, here we can see we have this cube inside the cube container. So let's type .cube, and here we'll just type animation, and the name of the animation is rotate anim, and we will have it for 10 seconds for infinite, and we'll also set the easing to linear so that it has the same speed. Right now let's save this, and let's go back to our home page and let's refresh this page, and here we can see we don't have the animation for the rotation. Let's decrease the width of the browser window. Now we can see that the cube is being rotated, but if we move the mouse pointer, it also rotates with the mouse pointer. So we need to disable the mouse pointer rotation when we are on smaller screens. So let's do that. Let's go to the JavaScript. I'll just search for the end of the header tag, and let's scroll down, and here we can see we have the JavaScript, and this is where we are adding the code for the rotation based on the mouse pointer. So what we will do is we'll just create a variable called rotate flag, and I'll just set it to false by default. And here I'll just add all this code inside an if condition. So here let's type if rotate flag, and let's close the curly braces over here. So now these lines of code will only run if we have the rotate flag set to true. Now let's write the code to set the rotate flag to true or false. So here you have to type window.addEventListener, and we need to listen for the resize event. The resize event is when we resize the browser width. So let's create an arrow function over here, and here let's type if window.matchMedia, and here we'll just type min width, and I'll just set it to 721 pixels because we had set a max width of 720 pixels for the media query in the CSS. So that's why we are adding a min width of 721 pixels. So whenever the screen size is greater than 721 pixels, this code will be executed. So let's write the code. So here I'll just type rotate flag equals true, and if that's not the case, then let's add an else over here, and in the else I'll just type rotate flag equals false. Right now this code will only run when we resize the browser window, but we need to run this code at the beginning as well. So let's copy this and paste it outside. Right now let's click on save, and let's go back to our website and let's refresh this page, and the rotation is not working, so there's some problem in our code. Let's right click over here and go to inspect, and let's go to the console, and here we have this error. So here we can see it says uncaught syntax error, and let's click on this line of code. So this is where the error is. We need to close this starting parenthesis over here. So let's go back and let's do that. So here let's add one more closing parenthesis, and we need to do the same over here as well. And we have one more thing we need to fix in our JavaScript. So we need to add all of this inside double quotes. So the double quotes should be over here outside this parenthesis, and it should end over here. And here you also have to type dot matches, and we also need to add pixels over here. Right now let's copy this from here and let's paste it down here. Let's click on save. Right now, let's go back to our website and let's refresh this page. And now we can see that the rotation is working, and let's decrease the width of the browser window. And now the rotation is not working for the mouse pointer, but the animation is working. But if we increase the width of the browser window, the animation is not working, but the rotation of the mouse pointer is working. So that's basically how you can make this responsive. Right, so that's it for this video. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comments below. And if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.